Hasta llegaba a pensar, jamás me irías a encontrar. Y ahora al verte frente a mí, hoy me ha vuelto a sonreír la vida y se borró mi herida. Y ahora que te tengo en mi corazón, no te dejaré ir de mi interior. Te adueñaste de mi alma y del aliento de mi voz. Ahora con el tiempo a mi favor. Te quiero abrir mi corazón y perderme como niña entre todos. De tanto tiempo en ansiedad, jamás podría imaginar la paz que solo tú me das. Y ahora al verte frente a mí, hoy me he vuelto a sonreír la vida y se borró mi herida. Y ahora que te tengo en mi corazón, no te dejaré ir de mi interior. Te adueñaste de mi alma y del aliento de mi voz. Ahora voy con el viento a mi Y ahora al verte frente a mí, hoy me ha vuelto a sonreír la vida y se borró mi herida. Y ahora que te tengo en mi corazón, no te dejaré ir de mi interior. Te adueñaste de mi alma y del aliento de mi voz. Ahora con el viento a mi Today I had one of those days where every step I tried to take ended with me on my face. My confidence crumbles like dust. Right now my mistakes are so much bigger than my trust. Won't be the last time. But if you don't mind, tell me again that I am loved.
start now. It's time. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening. I'll get them all taken care of all up front. Before we start, pray for your pastor. I was going to talk about him because he wasn't supposed to be here tonight. When has Tony ever missed church? Never, including now. But I thought he wasn't going to be here because we're having little mini crises going on. Pray for him. I don't know what's going on, but this guy is a good guy. He's truly, I'm not talking about you. This man who shall remain nameless, and I will deny all of this later. This is the best man I have ever known. He is a great man, and he is the most misunderstood man I have ever known. It is unbelievable. It is just unbelievable. So whether God is just strengthening him, testing him, growing him, or Satan's knocking him around a little, I don't know. Kind of doesn't matter. Just pray for his strength, pray for his wisdom, pray for his little heart. And poor guy, he's been sick for a week, a month. He can't sleep because he's coughing. And then he's at the barn from 4 in the morning till almost 10 o'clock at night. And then he gets home and he can't sleep. So, it's the truth. It's the truth. So, boy, they're a rough crowd, aren't they? All right, and to make it even worse, I feel bad because tonight I'm kind of talking about where I think he was wrong, talking about Samson. And I didn't plan on it when he was already low, like kicking a dog when he's down, but not that you're a dog. But no, and I thought he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight because of, these little crises that are going on. And I thought, well, shoot, I can't disagree with him when he's not even here. I thought, well, I don't have anything to teach now because I thought I was so uncomfortable disagreeing with him. I'm not disagreeing with him. But on Sunday, we're talking about second thoughts on Samson. That's what we're talking about tonight. So we're just, Tony's talked about Samson for the last few weeks. And so now we're just looking at Lauren's kind of second thoughts on Samson. Because this past Sunday, Tony, his talk was called How to Make Up for a Messed Up Life. I love the title. It's an awesome title. I mean, it's encouraging. It's inspiring. You've had this bad, messed up life. You've made all sorts of decisions. How do you rally at the end? And even better than rallying at the end, let's rally right now because we don't know how much time we're going to have. And he was in Judges 16. But to tell you the truth, I don't see Samson rallying at the end of his life as much as I see him resigning with revenge. I mean, because Tony talked about basically that at the end of Samson's life, and he didn't make it up. I'm not making fun of him. I'm not, saying. But when we were in the car, I said, at the end, I told him first how great I thought his talk was. It was very inspiring. It was very encouraging. I thought it had a lot of great principles. But I don't know that Samson followed those principles. I mean, he talked about how at the end of Samson's life, when he had his, one hand on one pillar and one hand on the other pillar, and he prayed to God, that he finally at the end wanted to show God glory and wanted to honor God. And I thought, I don't really see that in the passage. He didn't say, God, let me glorify you. And it was just kind of perplexing because it was like God honored this prayer anyway. And so he and I talked about it for a few minutes, and he said, hey, on Wednesday night, why don't you talk about it? He said, call it everything that Tony said wrong on Sunday.
No, that's what she thought.
No, that's not true. He said that. I said, no. So we kind of debated a little. So we're doing second thoughts about Samson. So I decided to call it How to Sabotage a Spectacular Life. Because I think Samson absolutely sabotaged a spectacular life. Again, and I don't see him rallying at the end. It is true that God still listened to Samson. It's true. And it seemed like God lifted Samson. I mean, Samson, in spite of all of his poor decisions, I mean, honestly, I don't know how that dude ever got into the Hall of Faith, Hebrews 11. He was just like one disaster after another. Now, I'll say this in case I forget to say it later. Samson ruled Israel, led Israel, judged Israel for 20 years. 20 years. We only have a smidge of Samson's life. Now, we have the smidge that God decided that we should have. We have what God wanted us to learn from. But he might have been, who knows? I mean, maybe I make up stuff all the time, these speculations, but maybe for 15 years he was this godly judge, and then maybe his wife died. And he just got torn apart, so he started sleeping with all these women, because, he was sleeping with prostitutes, and then he married one lady, and then he married another lady, and he abandoned one. But who knows what kind of crisis this guy might have gone through. Now, I know I tend to give these guys a benefit of the doubt, but he got into the Hall of Faith for a reason. I mean, I didn't get into the Hall of Faith. I don't think if God were to have a new Hall of Faith, I don't think my name's going to be there. So the man was probably better than I am, so I am giving him a hard time. But I'm not saying I'm any better than he was. I'm just saying God preserved for us what he wanted us to learn from Samson's life. And I don't think it was how he rallied at the end, personally. I don't think he made up for a messed up life. I think he sabotaged a spectacular life. So so in this whole story, and for those of you who weren't, we'll talk about some of the story. This is in Judges 16, and I'll fill in the gaps for those of you. I do get excited because these are such great stories, and I think that God preserves such great truth for us to learn from. And, that's all. And I get excited to show how you're wrong. I don't think that God was so much vindicating Samson in this story. You know how Samson was standing there with one arm on one pillar? The Philistines, the Philistines were having a party, making him dance, all this stuff. He had one hand on one pillar, one hand on the other pillar, and he prayed, God, please give me revenge for them taking out my 2 eyes. And God answered him, and he brought the whole thing down and killed 3,000 people. It looks like God was almost vindicating Samson. Because Samson prayed. I mean, when's the last time you prayed and God just did it? He doesn't do that to me. He doesn't answer my prayers that way. Samson, Samson, he was probably a fun guy to hang around if you were his buddy. He was probably a partier. He probably laughed. He didn't care about anything. He wasn't stressed out. He was probably just the happiest guy in the world until you got on his bad side, and then be careful because he's going to burn your house down and kill everybody in the process. After all the stupid things he did, and we'll touch on some of those stupid things, God seemed to vindicate him. It seemed like. I don't think so. I don't think he was so much vindicating Samson as he was vindicating himself. Hang in there with me. Okay, Judges 16:23. Now the rulers of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon their god and to celebrate, saying, our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands. That's what the rulers were saying. When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, our God has delivered our enemy into our hands, the one who laid waste our land and multiplied our slain. While they were in high spirits, verse 25, they shouted, bring out Samson to entertain us. So they called Samson out of the prison, and he performed for them. It doesn't actually say he danced for them. It says he performed for them. So I don't know. Maybe he's a... Yeah, he was a juggler. Yeah, he sure was a juggler. Delilah and the prostitute and another woman that I'm not sure what her name was. When they stood him among the pillars, Samson said to the servant who held his hand, put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple so that I may lean against them. Now the temple was, which was a lie, he didn't want to lean against them, he wanted to tear it down. But now the temple was crowded with men and women, and if there were men and women there were probably kids. I mean, if it was just a thing for men, it would have been men. But with men and women, unless they all had nannies to leave their kids. But now the temple was crowded with men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there, and on the roof were about 3,000 men and women watching Samson perform. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more for your honor and glory, and so that all will see that you are the one true God. And let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. He prayed a prayer of vengeance, which was Samson. I mean, all through Samson's life that we see, something dirty happens to him. You watch it, buddy, and boy, they did. I mean, he was a man of his word. He took vengeance, even when he deserved it. We'll talk about that. Then Samson reached toward the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood. So basically, in that prayer, I don't see him saying, and again, I'm not disagreeing with my highly esteemed husband who needs to be lifted right now. I'm not disagreeing with him. I think he he took a kind of a negative story and put a positive spin on it to say we can rally at the end. We can make up for a messed up life. It's true what he said. We can make up for a messed up life. I just don't know that I see Samson doing that. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, because some people would say, well, if Samson wasn't doing that, God wouldn't have answered his prayer. But hang in there with me. All right, where were we? 29. Then Samson reached toward the two central pillars on which the temple stood, bracing himself against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other. Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Then he pushed with all of his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it, all the men, women, and probably children. Thus he killed many more when he died than when he lived. So basically, Samson killed himself and 3,000 men and women for what? Revenge. That's the end of this story. He killed himself. Should you guys kill yourselves, by the way? Does it matter how bad life gets? No. Some people do, I understand. We get to the end of our ropes and some people make bad decisions. Samson killed himself. And 3,000 men and women. This was 9/11. How horrifying was 9/11? To know. We didn't know those people. Who didn't cry watching the buildings fall? Who didn't? We didn't know those people. But to see them jump out of the windows, to know that these firemen went in to rescue the people and never came out, to hear those little beep, 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 which means a fireman is down. How could that not get us? He did his own 9/11 for revenge. Samson went into their land. Samson slept with their women. He murdered 30 people over a riddle. Not even those involved in the riddle. Do you remember? He did this riddle, and he said, okay. Again, he was this fun-loving guy, loved riddles. He thought he was smarter than everybody else. And he does this riddle for all. So he's at his wedding banquet, his wedding feast, and he's assigned 30 assistants, 30 groomsmen, 30, I don't know what you call them, but 30, what do you call them? Like bridesmaids, but for the dudes. What are they? Ushers, groomsmen? All right, dudes. He got assigned 30 friends. I guess he didn't have friends of his own, so he got assigned 30 of them. And he did a riddle, and he said, if you guys get the riddle right, I'll buy you each a nice pair of clothes and underoos. But if you get it wrong, if you don't get it, you guys each have to buy me one. And then they went to his wife and said, tell us the riddle. Tell us the answer to the riddle. And then she, in typical woman fashion, oh, you don't love me at all. If you loved me, you would tell me. And in typical stupid guy fashion, he said, oh, this is the answer to the riddle. How stupid can people be? Anyway, so he told, they got the riddle right. He didn't kill them. This is over clothing. Clothing, it's a riddle. What's the big deal? He had plenty of money, I'm sure. Just buy him 30 pairs of clothes and say, wow, I trusted a stupid woman and I shouldn't have. But he went into another city, killed 30 people just to take off their clothing. What kind of a guy does that? Hey, I lost a bet, so I'm going to kill you and you and you and just take off your shirt and give it to them. A life for a shirt? This was a crazy dude. Then, when that happened, he was so mad, he left his wife. He abandoned his wife. It said that he went back to his father. They were in the banquet, in the feast for his wedding. I mean, he basically left her standing at the altar. He left for his father, and then sometime later at the Feast of Harvest, I think it was, who knows when that is, I don't know, maybe I should know. But at the Feast of Harvest, which was sometime later, then he decides he wants this wife. So then he comes back to collect his property. Well, what did the dad say? I thought you hated her. You left. So I gave her to one of the groomsmen, whatever. I gave him to one of the groomsmen. I gave her to one of the groomsmen because you left. I thought you hated her. What did he do then? These poor little foxes. I know I care too much about the animals, but he got 30. You know what little foxes look like? Little cute little foxes with their cute little tails. 300. He got 300 foxes, tied their tails with a burning torch, which means those foxes were burned to death, running through the Philistine villages, burning up all their crops. The Philistines said, "What happened? Who did this?" Well, Samson, because the dad gave his wife to one of the groomsmen. So what did they do to the bride and their dad? Killed them. So now his wife is dead and his father-in-law is dead, like he really cared. I mean, he's just going to find somebody else. So they're dead. Then the people of Judah, Judah, you remember Israel, Judah got split in half. Judah, not necessarily the good guys, but, said, "Samson, what are you doing? We're like at war now, and this has turned into this crazy mess." And I don't remember what he asked them not to do, but basically they said, "We're just going to hand you over to them. Don't kill me yourself." Yeah, don't kill me yourself. I'm just don't kill me yourself. They said, "Okay." They were working with him. "Okay, we won't. We're just going to hand you over to them." And what did he do? Killed 1,000 of them. Killed them, 1,000. Then they caught him. How did they catch him? Who was he with now? Which woman did he pick up now? Delilah. And Tony talked about that over the last couple of weeks. He just toyed and played with her, and you could tell she was rotten. You could tell she was horrible. She didn't care about him. He didn't care. He didn't care about her. And he's toying with her, toying with her, toying with her, and then finally he said, "If you cut off all my hair, I'll lose all my strength." He squandered away everything God had given him. God gave him a spectacular life, and he just squandered it all away. He was just playful with everything. It didn't matter if it meant death. It didn't matter. So they caught him because of his stupidity. Now, they did gouge out his eyes, which is horrible, but kind of understandable. This is a time of war. He's killed thousands of their people, or at least, 1,000 from Judah, and lots of their people, burned down their crops. He was horrible. Now, I'm not saying, the Philistines, they were horrible people to Israel. So I'm not saying that the Philistines were right and that Samson was wrong. I'm just saying Samson was kind of he seemed to me to be a crazy guy, and you can kind of understand where the Philistines were coming from. So they gouge out his eyes, and now he wants revenge. Out of everything he could pray to God for, "God, just give me revenge again." Everything we see about this guy is revenge. And he prays for it again. And amazingly, I think it's amazing, God answers. Why does God answer? Why do you think God answers that prayer? Was he honoring Samson's vengeful spirit? I don't think so. I don't think so. Again, I don't think that God was so much vindicating Samson as he was vindicating himself. Although God takes no delight in the death of the wicked. Tony talked about this on, what day is today? Sunday. God takes no delight in the death of the wicked. We see it in Ezekiel 18:23, 18:32, 33:11. He talks about it over and over. God does not take, I remember when Saddam Hussein was killed. Saddam Hussein? Yeah, when Saddam Hussein was saying, and Osama bin Laden. If he was really killed by us, I would have liked to see a photograph of that. But that's a whole other thing. Give me a break. No photograph. But when everybody thought that we killed Osama bin Laden and everybody was cheering, I understand. Again, I know what happened at 9/11. I understand what happens in the war and everything else. But Saddam Hussein's in hell. Osama bin Laden is in hell, burning in hell forever. And God takes no pleasure in the death of the wicked. Now, how does he view the death of his saints? Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of one of his saints. Doesn't that seem backwards? Doesn't it seem like God would be heartbroken when we die and say, yes, when all the enemies die? No, because God knows the big picture, and they're burning in hell for eternity, and we're in paradise. What happens to us? We die and we're in paradise. But God hates it, even more so than he takes no delight in the death of the wicked, because as much as he doesn't take delight in the death of the wicked, God sent Israel in to kill a lot of people. So it's not like he says, no, Israel, don't kill, the Canaanites, and don't kill the Jebusites, and don't kill the other ites. don't kill all these guys because they're bad and they're going to go to hell. God still sent Israel in to punish them because he hates it when his name is mocked. Why? Because he's so insecure? Why does God hate it when his name is? Because he knows that all of these fake gods deceive people. God hates religion. He hates it when his name is mocked, and he hates it when his nation is mistreated. I do not want to stand before you. Oh. Religion mocks God. Do you remember, was it last Christmas, the Christmas before? I don't think we've ever recovered from it, where I took the Virgin Mary. You saw how horrified they were when the statue fell.
I think we did that 3 times.
2 services. 2 services. People are horrified. It's a statue. It's a statue. It's ceramic. It's nothing. Yeah, a couple Christmases ago for Christmas, Tony should know better than to have me talk.
I should know better.
You should know better than to have me talk. I was talking about the Virgin Mary, and I had a nativity scene, and I had the Catholic Virgin Mary, you know, with all the whatever glowy stuff that she has. You know what I mean, where they set up this Virgin Mary. And so we were talking about who Mary is and who Mary was and who Mary wasn't. Mary was the Mary of the nativity scene. Mary was not the Virgin Mary. You know, she got married and had other kids after that. She was not sinless. She was just a girl. She was not who the Catholic Church makes her out to be. So we talked about who Mary was, the nativity Mary, and who Mary wasn't. And to get the point across, I don't remember what exactly I said beforehand, but I took a hammer and I smashed the Virgin Mary. Somebody, you heard those gasps when the statue fell in this video? I heard those same gasps from somebody's voice that sounded very familiar. Tony said, I heard a gasp, and I looked around, and I realized it was me. It's shocking, I know, when we see some holy thing. Religion mocks God. These statues, these totem poles, I think the Kachinas are awfully on the edge, if not way over the edge. We see that all through the Old Testament. God doesn't want us to set up these images and these idols and these statues and he doesn't want it. Now, when ISIS went into Iraq and went into their museums, and they were destroying all of these holy things, I actually had mixed feelings about it. Because on the one hand, I hate culture to be destroyed. I hate history to be destroyed. These were things that have been around for a couple thousand years. You hate to see this, it's almost like graffiti. You know, they're for no reason just destroying these artifacts. But them destroying these holy things, burn them. Destroy them. Shoot, God can use ISIS. I'm not saying God's using ISIS, but it's not. But yeah, God is using ISIS in different ways, kind of like God used the Babylonians and the Assyrians and everybody else. That's a whole other thing. So I had mixed feelings about that. But religion, most people think as long as you're religious, you're okay. As long as you pray to God. Really, most people feel that way. Most of our friends and family, and sometimes when we're talking about someone, as long as they use the word God, we say, oh, they're okay. They're okay. We like to believe they're okay. We like to kind of be in denial and think everybody's going to go to heaven because God is gracious, and as long as they believe in God, and 95% of Americans believe in some kind of God, and so we're probably all going to get there. Did the Philistines believe in God? They believed in their God, Dagon. They were praising Dagon. The rulers thanked Dagon for delivering Samson into their hands, and the people saw it, and they praised Dagon that he delivered God in their hand, Samson into their hands. And God said, I'm not having it. I don't think he vindicated Samson. I think he vindicated himself. Not because he's insecure, but because he doesn't want people to follow a false god, to follow a false religion. And I think God was saying, I've had it right now. When his name is mocked, the Bible says it will please him to ruin and destroy you. So again, he takes no delight in the death of the wicked, but when his name is mocked, it will please him to ruin and destroy you. He says in Deuteronomy 28:63. Then he says, I will be avenged, and when I have spent my wrath upon them, they will know that I, the Lord, have spoken in my zeal. No, he doesn't take pleasure in the death of the wicked. However, he hates it when his name is mocked, and he hates it when his nation is mistreated. Rejoice, saints and apostles and prophets. God has judged her for the way she has treated you. This is looking at the end times where God is judging the nations for the way it treated Israel. He says in Joel 3, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. Guys, it is not looking good for Israel. You know, I'm so thrilled that Netanyahu got reelected. Did you hear, and I'm not sure how true this is, so if I'm wrong, sorry, people watching me on tape or online, but I heard from at least two different sources. They were really pretty reputable sources. I think I heard it first on Fox, and then I heard it on Jay Sekulow, but I don't know the details, that Obama sent delegates to Israel to try to sway the Israeli election away from Netanyahu. And then after Netanyahu got reelected, because of course the whole world wants a Palestinian nation. And what did Netanyahu say? Not on my watch. We are not going to have a Palestinian nation. How dare he? It's his country. It's their country. Shoot, God gave them more, and they will get more. God does not want his nation to be mistreated. He hates it. Why Israel? I don't know, but it's very clear that Israel is the apple of his eye. Now, Israel's being punished right now. Israel's in judgment. You know that whole sin, judgment, repentance, deliverance. They turned from Christ. They're in little j judgment now, and during the 7-year tribulation, they're going to be in big J judgment for crucifying Christ, basically. But God will avenge his people Israel. Again, I don't think that God was so much vindicating Samson as vindicating himself and vindicating his people. He hates it when his name is mocked, and he hates it when his nation is mistreated. God had given Samson unbelievable gifts and undeserved status, and he squandered them both. But the truth is, if you've given your life to Jesus, you've been given unbelievable skills, and you've been given undeserved status. We are a child of the King. We are a child of God. That's amazing. How often do we let that sink in, that we are God's kid, we are God's chosen child? That's crazy. We're ambassadors of the Lord Jesus Christ on this earth. Wow. I might deserve that, but he doesn't. Just kidding. That's crazy what he's given us. We have unbelievable skills. Most of us may not feel like we do, but when we gave our life to the Lord, he gave you his own special spiritual gift just for you. You may have the gift of teaching, or the gift of giving, or the gift of encouragement, or the gift of prophecy, or the gift of a few of them all together. We don't know that the Bible lists all the gifts. But isn't that crazy to think that God gave you a special gift? Orlando. Melissa. Tony, one of my favorites. If you've ever noticed in the Bible, I try to encourage Tony with this because I think it's absolutely true. The most godly men of the Bible, God was the most silent to. John the Baptist, Job. He didn't answer them. He let them go through torture. And they cried out to God for answers. Where are you, God? Where are you, God? And what did God say? I bet Job wished he'd quit asking him one fewer time, because God finally answered Job. But he didn't give him the answers to his questions. Why, God? Why am I going through this? Why aren't you answering me? Why don't you show yourself? And then God said, you want me to show myself? Come here, step up. Step up to the mic, Job. The most godly men of the Bible, God was quiet. They went through the hardest time. Where Samson, a big dork, God answered him. All the godly men and women cried out to God for answers, and he didn't. Why? Because he's hateful? No. I think he just wants us to grow. He wants to stretch us. Samson, it was too late. I mean, Samson had learned whatever Samson was going to learn. And again, I'm reading into it. But I think God did what he did to vindicate himself. Oh, yeah, you're going to worship Dagon over this? Choke on it. I almost said something else. I think I could say it, but I better not. Tony's like, no, I know you, don't say it. But God was like, choke on it. You want to worship some false god? I'll show you who's real. Just like the statue that fell. I don't think that was God, but I'll show you who's real. Dagon, well, that was funny. Isn't it Dagon, the one who finally, they put the ark of the Lord beside Dagon? God is funny. And then the next morning they came in and Dagon was flat on his face. God is funny. God vindicates himself. God wants to wake people up to quit following these stupid religions. Then they propped their God up. That should be a hint right there. They propped their God up, and then the next morning, he fell down again, and it wasn't that his hands were off. He didn't have feet, right, because he was a fish? His head, for sure. His head, his hands, I was going to say his feet, but I think he had a fish body. But God was funny. Where did I get into that? Anyway, God has given you a very special gift. We don't want to squander it like Samson did. Samson had very obvious gifts. Ours might not be as obvious. But God's still given us incredible opportunity, incredible gifts. We don't want to squander them. So, how to sabotage a spectacular life. We're really close to the end, so don't think I'm really just starting the talk. Number one, I'm really not. How to sabotage a spectacular life. Live your life according to your passions. Did I jump ahead? Oh, wait, or am I okay? No, I'm okay. Yeah, you can go ahead. To the next one. Yes, how to sabotage a spectacular life. Number one, live your life according to your passions. This is how to sabotage a spectacular life. So you kind of want to do the opposite because you don't want to sabotage your life. Number one, live your life according to your passions. Sometimes your feelings need to be suppressed. Samson lived his life according to his passions. Absolutely. I mean, think about all of his passions. I mean, good and bad. Passions can be good and bad. But Tony asked actually the other week, can someone be too passionate? If it's not controlled, yes, absolutely. Samson's the perfect example. He had uncontrolled passion. He had sexual passion. He had rage, crazy rage. Anger, I guess, is kind of part of rage. Jealousy, revenge, vengefulness. It was just horrible, horrible. Passions that were unsuppressed. And every one of us have fallen into a situation where our emotions get the best of us. Don't they? Whether it's jealousy, whether it's love, this whatever that feeling is, where sometimes you know better. You know better. You so know better. You can't control how you feel. I don't know, honestly, sometimes I wonder why God even created emotions. But if he didn't create emotions, we'd be like robots. That'd be easier, but not as much fun. I mean, emotions are a gift from God, but emotions are impossible to control. Or sometimes, but we have to try to control them. Otherwise, we're going to turn out just like Samson. You've heard 1,000 times before. Tony's talked about this 1,000 times before. Oh, just trust your heart. We'll talk about that too. That's the worst. That's trusting. I heard a radio preacher. He's a TV preacher too, but I heard him on the radio, who has tens of thousands of followers. And I heard him say, if you have whatever your heart is telling you to do, you need to do that because that's the Holy Spirit talking to you. If your heart is telling you to do something, do it because it's the Holy Spirit talking to you. Our heart is deceitfully wicked, desperately wicked. It's incurable. I have that passage so that I don't have to butcher it. But why are emotions so hard to control? Most of us can at least relate to this, even though most of us haven't done it quite this bad. He's working on his computer. He's like in a Starbucks or something.
Can't be right! This can't be right! This cannot be right! This
looks like a
cannot be
normal
right!
guy.
This is not right.
His khakis and his button-up shirt.
I'm sorry.
He apologized. I'm sorry.
Failure! I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
He knows better, but he has this frustration.
Everything's in here, though. I have got cost analysis reports in here. I've got every address, every phone number. I have got pictures of my children. I have got a letter from my mother. I have got a half of a novel that I had to stop writing when my wife got pregnant. I have got a letter from the governor because I won an award for cooking. I've got a presentation in 10 minutes that is on here.
You guys have probably been there before. You won't admit it, but you've been there before, where you're so frustrated you just can't control it. It's a computer. We can look at him and say, what a moron. But it was a computer. He had a presentation. I don't know if you could hear all the words. He had a presentation in 10 minutes. He lost everything. He lost pictures of his kids, pictures of his wife when they were pregnant, a letter from his mother, all his phone. I mean, things that we'd say, oh, you know, they're just pictures or they're just whatever. He lost everything. And you get so caught up in the moment. None of you have ever, I remember when I was a teenager, I threw a shoe at a mirror. I know other people that have punched holes in walls or thrown phones across I didn't say who, not at me. But you know, you just get so frustrated, you feel like you have to get it. I mean, look at road rage. People kill each other. People follow each other. Why? Because they have passions that are out of control. You have to control your emotions, and emotions are incredibly difficult to control. We've all lost control, and then we thought, what was I thinking? Here's just another example of the same thing.
Can I please call someone's room? Ian McCallum. Please. Ian McCallum. I got this, Ellen.
Okay, listen, I just wanted to tell you my computer's frozen.
Ian McCallum. I-A-I-N.
No, I-A-I-A-N.
It's
I-A-I-A-N.
What is with his spelling?
Steve, just calm down.
It's fine. I'm fine. I'm sorry. It's cool.
sorry.
Sorry, guys.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, everything's good.
Listen,
No.
would you just listen
Yeah,
to me for a
everything's good,
second?
thanks.
We're okay?
Yeah, sorry about that. I know you guys are busy.
Steve,
We're all busy.
my computer is frozen. Okay. And yours is running out of battery. We've got to do something about it.
No, I can't find a plug. When was this building built? The 40s? There's a plug. There's not a plug around here? Look at this is where the plug goes, right there.
He's
gonna text him
screaming in
again
his
real quick.
hotel.
Still with the coffee. What is going on here, guys?
He's standing back there holding the coffee.
Coffee? Oh, just a moment. Okay.
You might want to call security.
Ellen!
Yeah.
Would you... Where is this guy?
I don't know. I just talked to his wife. She didn't know where he was. She hadn't talked to him this morning.
Come on! It's a big deal! Ian! Ian, where are you? Ah!
Steve,
Oh,
calm down.
oh, oh, what? What are you looking at? What?
Oh my God. Oh my
Come
God.
on.
Steve, stop.
Get off me!
Oh. Oh my God, Steve.
That did not end well. And we laugh, but you feel bad for the guy in a sense. I mean, he was being a jerk, but just to have that much frustration, that much anger, that much, I have never yelled at Tony, ever. But I heard somebody yelling at him once. Wasn't me. And while that person was yelling at him, this was years ago, she was thinking, what are you screaming about? What are you was so upset about? But she couldn't stop because she was mad. And so she was going to keep yelling at him until she made her point. But even then, the reasoning was like, wow, he didn't do anything wrong. Relax, calm down. We all do things sometimes. We lose control and we think, what are we thinking? We have to get control of our emotions. Look at this passage. This isn't specifically talking about emotions, but tell me what you think. James 3:2. We all stumble in many ways. Anyone who is never at fault in what they say is perfect, able to keep their whole body in check. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. Verse 7, all kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and sea creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. The tongue is a muscle. It doesn't have any feelings like emotions. It's it's a muscle. What's wrong with the tongue? I mean, does this mean that a person who's mute is perfect, is sinless because they can't speak, because they have control of their tongue? Why is the tongue so dangerous? Look at Matthew 12:34. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. These guys who lost control, who were screaming and acting like jerks, was it their, that muscle that was the problem? It wasn't their muscle, it was their heart. What's the heart? Is it the thumpa, thumpa, thumpa? No, it's their emotions, it's their passion. There's nothing wrong with emotions, there's nothing wrong with passions until they get out of control. Samson's passions were out of control. If you want to sabotage your life, let your passions get out of control. Live according to your passions. I put this in a couple different versions just because I like the different versions. For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Jeremiah 17:9, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? Your heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Or the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can understand it? We can't trust our emotions. We can't trust our feelings. There's nothing wrong with our emotions. There's nothing wrong with our feelings. Just don't get hung up on your feelings. Oh, but you hurt my feelings. It's not all about your feelings. Don't get hung up on yourself. Don't get hung up on your feelings. Proverbs 28:6. He who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but whoever walks wisely will be delivered. Don't trust in your heart. Well, what are you supposed to trust if you can't trust in your heart? This. He tells us what to trust. So if you say, oh, but I really love him, and he says if I love him, I'll do this with him. No. No. I could think of lots of examples, but I would just embarrass you. Bottom line, if your feelings are your guide, you're going to get messed up. If your fulfillment is your goal, this is going to be number 2 in a minute, you're going to get messed up. If your feelings are your guide, if that's how you determine your life, you're just going to go wrong. I guarantee it, because he says so. You're just going to go wrong. Oh, but she's so nice, and oh, he's so funny, and oh, I really like this place, and oh, I really like doing that, and I find a lot of fun doing that. If your feelings are your guide, you're going to get messed up. If your fulfillment is your goal, you're going to get messed up. Now, we find fulfillment in all sorts of things, and some of them are good things. Our family, is our family bad? Well, mine is, but no, it's not. Family, our career, I mean, a lot, especially men get a lot of fulfillment in their career. I told you guys when I was in when I was in residency, so I was already a doctor. I wanted to get my job done at the hospital and get home. I wanted to be home. A lot of the guy residents that were with me, they were in no hurry to get home. Why? Dr. Smith? Yes, nurse. They loved hearing the word doctor. It was funny, except for it was kind of sad, but it was okay because as long as they were willing to stay late, I could go home. I had better things to do than to be called doctor. Your career, though, a lot of men find their identity in their career. That's where they find their fulfillment. They lose their job. I mean, people will commit suicide because they've lost their job. Not just because of the money. I mean, money can do it too. But it's their identity. Sometimes with money, people can have enough money. Well, how much is enough money? It's never enough. When have you ever had enough money? Never. You always want a little more. And it's not because you're being greedy. You just know how much more good you could do with a little bit more. You know how much more comfortable your life would be with just a little more. You're not getting greedy. You're not going to be all Michael Jackson with the money. Nothing like that. Just a little more. And then you get a little more, and then how much do you want? A little more. Just a little more. You always want a little more. But people will do crazy, stupid things. I've never understood, like bank robbers. I've never understood that they're going to go to prison for what? For money. For this little paper printed stuff. I know you can do stuff with money, but they go to prison for that. I saw a video. I should have shown this one. But I saw a video of a guy, and he went in to rob the bank. As soon as he pulled the gun, I think he handed the teller a note. As soon as he handed the teller a note, these huge metal things went, boom. I mean, I'm not kidding. It took like not even a fraction of a second. It was just, boom. So then he froze because there was now nobody around. So then he tried to get out of the door, and it locked. He was trapped inside the bank. And he's all on video camera, too, so he's never going to live it down for the rest of his life. And then the police came and arrested him, of course. But that was crazy. But people do crazy things for money. Social activity. Again, we find fulfillment in all sorts of things, and it's not all bad. But we just have to, again, with our feelings, they're not bad. We just have to control them. Samson didn't do that. Whatever you find your fulfillment in, it's not bad. You just have to control it. Samson didn't do that. Hobbies. I put innocent things, knitting, movies, sports, books, anything. I mean, I remember talking to somebody once. She was a Christian. We said, if you could retire, what would you do with your time? And she said, oh, just lay around and read lots of books. Nothing wrong with reading books. It's like, really, out of all the things we could do with our life, read books? Nothing wrong with reading books. But really, that's why we're on this earth, to read books or to knit sweaters? Nothing wrong with knitting sweaters. But when we find all of our fulfillment in our hobbies, sports, I might step on some of your toes. There's nothing wrong with sports, nothing wrong with watching games. It's funny. I don't watch any sports. But if it's on TV, I'll get into it like that. It's like, ooh, that was a good one. And all of a sudden, I'll be for whatever team wears the cutest uniforms or something, or actually whoever's like the underdog or whoever seems nicest. I'm one of those typical women who, I'll see one guy helping another one up, and okay, I'm for that team. But it's easy to get into them, and it's like you get all riled up. But people who are just so obsessed about their sports teams, I don't know. I just think we have to be careful. When our feelings guide us, we're going to get messed up. When our fulfillment is what our goal is, we're going to get messed up. Service I have there. A lot of people find their fulfillment in all the good things they're doing. I did this or I did that, and I served at the homeless shelter, and I did this, and that's where they get their fulfillment. This life is not about your fulfillment. This life is not about my fulfillment. It's just not. I mean, we might as well figure it out now. Samson didn't figure that out. Samson seemed to think that life was all about Samson, and it wasn't. We are going to be so much happier if we can figure out that our life is not about our feelings, and our life is not about our fulfillment. There's nothing wrong with feelings or fulfillment in and of itself, but if you're following after passion, you're going to let your feelings lead you, and if you're following after pleasure, you're going to let your fulfillment lead you, and you're going to get messed up. So again, number one, don't live your life according to your passion. Sometimes your feelings need to be suppressed. And number two, don't live your life according to your pleasures. Sometimes your fulfillment needs to be secondary. If your feelings are your guide, again, you're going to get messed up. If your feelings are your guide, you're going to get messed up. If your fulfillment is your goal, you're going to get messed up. Although we've been studying Samson, Samson's life was never all about Samson. He thought it was. But we can see it wasn't all about Samson. It was about God. Just like all of life, it's all about His glory, not our glory. And our lives are not all about us. And it's easy to say in church. But Monday through Saturday, well, then our life is all about us. God's going to get glory with or without us. That's a weird thought, but that's true. God doesn't need us. Sometimes I get frustrated because I think, I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my life. What am I accomplishing for God? I don't want to stand before God and feel like I didn't accomplish something great for Him. And I feel like, I'm on the phone with CenturyLink for 2 more hours, and I'm putting out this fire, and Tony's dealing with Comcast now every single day at the barn. We're putting out all these fires that mean nothing. Eternally, they mean nothing. And it's like, God, what are you trying to teach me? That my life means nothing? That my time means nothing? But then I think about Moses, who wandered in the desert for 40 years. 40 years. I'm only 45. Only. Did you catch that? I'm only 45. He wandered for 40 years. What a waste of life. Did Moses have a waste of life? No. Why did God have him wander for 40 years? I don't know. Obviously, he wanted to teach Moses something. He could have taught him like that. He could have taught it to Moses in a dream. He could have supernaturally put the thoughts into Moses. But he didn't. He had him wander for 40 years figuring stuff out. And sometimes I think we're going to wander around for 40 years figuring stuff out. Maybe he's trying to teach us he doesn't need us. But the cool thing is, he created us because he wants to use us. He doesn't need, did God need Samson? No, thank goodness. He didn't need Samson. Did God want to use Samson? Yes. He gave Samson incredible gifts, incredible opportunities, an incredible status as a leader of Israel. And he squandered it all. We've been given incredible gifts, incredible opportunities. And I fear we're squandering it a lot. It's not necessarily our fault. Again, I've told you this before. I think our culture is it's conducive to wasting our life. We have good movies to watch. We do. I love putting a movie on at the house on the wall. We use a little projector and watch it on the wall. That's our date night. I'm a cheap date. You don't have to take me anywhere. Yeah, I am. I don't want to go anywhere. My house is the happiest place on earth. And I want to sit on the couch, let the little neighbor dog in and come up and love on him. We've adopted another dog, kind of. And sit on the couch, and we watch our little movies on the TV projector. And it's fun. It's a way for an hour and a half just to kind of get our mind off of the heavy stuff of life and just kind of relax. But that's not what life's all about, our amusement, being able to check out. I mean, if we watch movies constantly, that's a problem. If we play video games constantly, that's a problem. Our life is not about our fulfillment. Our life is not about our feelings. Our life should be about glorifying God. He doesn't need us to do it, which shouldn't make you feel worthless. It should actually take some weight off your shoulders. He's going to get glory one way or the other. What's cool is, kind of like we always say at our house, we don't have to go to work. We get to go to work. Our kids didn't have to go to school. They got to go to school. They didn't have to take out the trash. You get to take out the trash. I mean, really. We don't have to serve God. We get to serve God. He's going to get his glory one way or the other. We just get to line up with him and be on his team, or we get to squander it away like it looks like Samson did. And when we realize that, we really can. We can find a tremendous freedom just knowing that we can serve God. It can be like, again, the weight of the world is off of our shoulders, and we have a whole new perspective on life. Check this out. These are chimpanzees that for the first time in over 30 years, they've been caged up for animal research. For the first time in 30 years, they're going to get to go outside. They've never seen sunshine before. They've never seen grass before. They've been in a warehouse. I mean, it's a place for them to play, but still, 30 years. And they see this door open, and you see them kind of start, look at them. they're still kind of scared. They've never been outside. He goes out, but then he goes back in the little window. One guy keeps running up to the other guys trying to hug. But there's one little one who looks, he's so scared. Watch him. That's their new home. It's still caged up. They say that if they let them out in the wilderness, they'll get killed because they've been in captivity for so many years. So they're still kind of captive, but at least a much bigger place. And I thought, would they really hug each other like that? I thought that was kind of weird. So I watched another one where they had been in captivity. I almost joined PETA after watching these videos. I saw another one after 40 years, these chimps were let out. They did the same thing. They hugged each other. They turned around and hugged each other. Then I saw dogs, beagles, that I think they were captive for 20, no. Because they don't live that long. It was a long time. But it was the first time in their life that they had been let out. I know that for sure. And the beagles, they were scared. It was the first time they ever felt grass under their feet. They were scared. And then you saw them kind of warm up, and then one beagle would run to all the other ones and kind of hit it, and then run to the other one and kind of hit it, all happy. When we realize that God is going to get glory no matter what, but we can partner with Him. We don't have to sabotage our life. We don't have to be like Samson, where our passions and our pleasures, it's all about us. It can give us a tremendous freedom. And then we may even find a peace and a joy that passes understanding. We may find ourselves in McDonald's. I think I've seen Tony in McDonald's in the little play place, looking like that little puppy. Just so happy for no good reason. We just have a life that's full of joy and full of peace. Now, how many of us live life like this besides Tony? Most of us don't. Now, most of us, we don't necessarily freak out like the guy in the hotel or the guy with his laptop. Have you guys seen that commercial? I think it's an insurance commercial where there's a little kid who's in a little car. And the dad says, like, do you want to go to work with me today? And the kid has like these images of him being in traffic saying, come on, move it. And then he gets a ticket. Are you kidding me? It's been 5 minutes. I don't know. Something resonates with me with that commercial. Like, oh, bless his heart, kid, just stay home. You're right. The world is awful out there. Most of us may not have gotten all postal, but life is hard. Life is full of frustration. I mean, they're laughing because I said most people don't go all postal, and they looked at you, postman. Poor Greg, the nicest guy in the whole bunch, besides my husband, Tony, of course. Most of us haven't gone crazy, hopefully not in public if we've gone crazy, but most of us live a heavy life. Most of us get up in the morning and we put out one fire after another and we just make it through the day. We don't have to. We serve a living God. We know how the book ends and we win. It's not going to get better before then. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse in the Middle East. It will. It will get worse in the Middle East. Why? Because I'm clairvoyant? Maybe. No, because I've read the book. It's going to get worse in the Middle East, and it's going to get worse for you, Christian. You think life is hard now because Comcast is incompetent and because CenturyLink is even worse, and you think life is hard now? It's going to get way worse. But we don't have to carry all that weight on our shoulders. God is going to get His glory no matter what. We don't have to sabotage a spectacular life. We've been given, it may not feel like it, a spectacular life. We don't have to sabotage it. Don't live life according to your feelings. And don't live life for your fulfillment. It wasn't all about Samson, and it's not all about me. It's definitely not all about me. It's not about me, and it's not about you. It's all about God's glory. All right, let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you once again for your word. Thank you for the incredible examples that you've given us, both good examples and bad examples. God, you've said that you've given us these examples for our learning, for us to learn from so that we can become more like you. God, I pray that we would not squander this incredibly spectacular life that you've given us. God, help us learn from Samson. Help us learn how he lived according to uncontrolled passions. He lived according to his feelings, what he wanted. God, help us learn to control our feelings, suppress our feelings if necessary. God, and help us learn that our fulfillment is secondary in this life. It's not all about us. God, help us learn that. Help us see that we could have so much more of a fulfilling life if we would just rest in the fact that you are God, that you've saved us, that we are your children, and that you've given us incredible opportunity to live for you, to represent you, and to help save people in this lost and dying world. God, help us be good examples of that. Help us not get overwhelmed by all the stupid things in life. Help us learn from them and again become more like you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.